Welcome to Skytech-Lens. The year 2025 began with a bold proclamation from the White House: every car sold in the United States must be built on American soil. President Donald Trump's new term was defined by this economic nationalism, a promise to restore American manufacturing and put America first. The vision was clear: bustling factories, secure jobs, and renewed national pride. The automotive industry, a symbol of American might, became the main stage for this push. The administration blamed decades of trade deals for hollowing out U.S. manufacturing, vowing to reverse the trend with tough new policies. The plan: make it prohibitively expensive to import vehicles and parts even from close allies. This was framed as a matter of national security and fairness, linking trade policy to border security and drug enforcement. But the reality was more complex. The North American auto industry was a single integrated ecosystem with parts crossing borders multiple times before final assembly. Trump's directive threatened this system, setting the stage for a showdown with America's closest trading partner. The US and Canadian auto industries have been intertwined since the 1965 Auto Pact, which eliminated tariffs and created a single North American market. Plants in Ontario, Michigan, and Ohio specialized, building a cross-border supply chain that became the envy of the world. NAFTA and USMCA only deepened this integration, making modern vehicles a patchwork of North American parts. Engines from Mexico, transmissions from Ohio, body panels from Ontario, components crossed the border multiple times before final assembly. Windsor and Detroit, separated by a river, function as a single automotive hub, with thousands of workers and truckloads of parts moving daily. This system allowed Ford, GM, and Stellantis to compete globally by leveraging efficiencies on both sides of the border. Trump's Made in America mandate struck at the heart of this system, ignoring the reality of modern manufacturing. Disentangling these supply chains was seen by experts as nearly impossible without massive disruption. Tariffs threatened to turn every border crossing into a costly checkpoint, grinding just-in-time delivery to a halt. The unbreakable bond of the North American auto industry was suddenly at risk. By mid-2025, the Trump administration's rhetoric became reality, with sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods. A 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminium, justified on national security grounds, sent shockwaves through manufacturing. The cost of building a car in the U.S. soared overnight. Next came a 25% tax on all fully assembled vehicles imported from Canada, targeting Ontario's auto plants. The administration claimed this would protect American jobs and correct trade imbalances, but the industry's integration made such distinctions meaningless. The tariffs were a blunt tool, turning a partner into an adversary and rewriting decades of trade rules. U.S. factories relying on Canadian materials faced soaring costs, while automakers with cross-border strategies were hit with massive penalties. The intricate machinery of the continental auto industry was thrown into chaos. The hammer had fallen, and the consequences would be felt on both sides of the border. The tariffs' impact was immediate and severe. In Ontario, Ford and Stellantis suspended production, leaving thousands of workers in limbo. The once busy Windsor minivan plant was reduced to rotating shifts, its future uncertain. U.S. plants too suffered as parts shortages disrupted assembly lines. General Motors scrambled to reconfigure supply chains, but chaos and costs mounted. Chrysler reported losses nearing $5 billion, with Ford projecting similar devastation. Money that could have gone to electric vehicle R&D was lost to tariffs and production chaos. Workers bore the brunt: Canadian layoffs, reduced hours, and American workers fearing for their jobs. The promise of a manufacturing renaissance rang hollow as the industry contracted. The domino effect was clear. The first to fall were the workers on the assembly line. The system was too interconnected to be easily rewired. The trade war's pain was real, and it was spreading. The fallout rippled far beyond assembly plants. Canada's steel industry, reliant on U.S. exports, was devastated. Orders vanished, jobs lost, and communities like Sault Ste. Marie faced collapse. Ontario's auto parts suppliers, once vital to U.S. plants, saw contracts disappear as automakers sought more secure, if pricier, domestic options. The shift threatened to permanently erode Canada's advanced manufacturing sector. Consumers felt the pain too. A Center for Automotive Research report found tariffs acted as a tax, costing U.S. households an extra $1,300 a year. Higher sticker prices deterred buyers, slowing sales and leaving unsold cars on lots. In Canada, sales of American-branded vehicles plummeted by up to 30% in key markets. Frustrated consumers turned to Korean and European imports or delayed purchases altogether. The tariffs, meant to reshape industry, were now reshaping consumer behavior. Brand loyalty and market share were shifting with long-term consequences. The trade war's reach was everywhere, from steel mills to showrooms. Canada struck back with retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, targeting cars, whiskey, oranges, and more, hitting politically sensitive industries. The message: Canada would not be bullied. The counter-tariffs aimed to pressure U.S. industries to lobby for change and show Canadians their government would defend their interests. By late summer, diplomatic tone shifted. After a call between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump, Canada agreed to drop most counter-tariffs as a gesture of goodwill. Critics called it a capitulation, but Ottawa kept tariffs on U.S. autos, steel and aluminium, signaling the core dispute was unresolved. The government walked a tightrope between defiance and diplomacy. The trade war was far from over, but both sides were searching for an off-ramp. The next move would determine the future of North American trade. As the tariff battle raged, a new front opened: digital services. Canada planned a 3% digital services tax on tech giants like Google and Amazon, aiming to tax profits earned from Canadian users. The U.S. saw this as a direct attack on its tech sector and threatened more tariffs. The digital tax became a flashpoint, pitting Canada's push for fair taxation against U.S. protection of its tech giants. Facing the risk of further escalation, Canada rescinded the DST plan, a tough but necessary concession to keep negotiations alive. The episode showed that modern trade wars are about more than goods. They're about data, services, and the rules of the digital economy. The stakes had never been higher. President Trump's negotiating style, aggressive, unpredictable, and public, was central to the dispute. He criticized Canada's protected markets and trade surpluses, using confrontation to keep partners off balance and appeal to his base. Inflammatory rhetoric, including offhand remarks about Canada becoming the 51st state, strained the alliance and turned negotiations into spectacle. The administration's need for a political win drove the tariffs, even as economic logic suffered. Canada, under Prime Minister Carney, responded with strategic patience, calmly presenting facts, retaliating when needed, and keeping the door open for negotiation. The contrast was stark theatrical chaos from Washington, measured resolve from Ottawa. Both sides maneuvered for advantage, but the cost of brinkmanship was mounting. The future of the relationship hung in the balance. Beyond the numbers, the trade war's true cost was human. Auto workers in Windsor faced layoffs and uncertainty. Steelworkers in Sault Ste. Marie saw secure careers vanish. The conflict froze new investment, with companies hesitant to commit to Canada amid unpredictable rules. Some firms shifted production to Mexico or halted reinvestment, threatening the industry's long-term health. Most damaging was the erosion of trust between the U.S. and Canada, a partnership built on decades of cooperation. Rebuilding confidence would take far longer than tearing it down. The real test, whether any new agreement could restore stability and hope for workers on both sides of the border. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel for more updates. Thanks.